Hey, what's up, Camilo? Always the first. All right. Let's see. Okay, so we are 8 so far. Let's start this thing. So I got this little scene here that's from my renders for the clay stuff that I'm gonna be showing today. And I thought it would be fun to actually do a entire little project, you know, do for example, like start with Stan and maybe transform this entire thing into a clay sculpture and then bring it to Maya and then show you the shaders I'm using, all that stuff. And I can actually do a mini tutorial on how to approach, you know, it's like how to create the clay effects, do a little demo about my brushes. I think it's gonna be fun. So let me just check the scene here first, because I didn't realize it was this messy before. Last time I saved this was like in January 2018, so it's been a long time since I touched this file. But it's working. I just have to see if these lights are actually having an interesting intensity here. I think I can go a little bit higher with it. Let's just see. Yeah, guys, I cannot believe it's the last day today. We still have the reviews, but man, that went fast. Let's see. Oh, okay, so Octabox. I hate this little tab here that I have to pull twice. Not even working. Let me go to my classic. Okay, easier this way. So let's see. Let's just crank the intensity here a little bit so I can actually show you better. And I get this Arnold. We just prepare the scene a little bit so it's not too confusing, because like I said, it's a big mess right now. It's not totally organized. And let's see what's the resolution I have, so I can actually do some quick renders as well. Oracle render. So I have 800 by 800, that's fine. And then 5, actually, let's do 3, and then let's keep this one at 6. Let's just try a little render here very quickly so we can just experiment with it. I think it would be cool, like for today, like do a little project, like do the clay demo, but transform this entire thing into a little process, you know? Let's pretend I'm gonna be doing this for like posting later on my Instagram or something. So I can just do like the sculpting of the piece and see if I can get everything done. But basically like do the sculpt and the render and then the post-processing of the entire thing. So we can actually go and fulfill all the, you know, the little check boxes and there's stuff I was missing. So let's just do a render from here just to test it, if it is working. Oh, by the way, this object here is like, it's a high resolution mesh. It's not like, I'm not using displacement at all. So that's why it's gonna be a little bit tougher, a little bit longer to render. But one thing I'm gonna do here too, let me just check if my depth of field is on, because that adds a lot of time to the render. So yeah, indeed it's on. So I'm gonna turn it off so I can actually see what's going on in there. I can actually zoom in and just do a little window like that. Yeah, that's gonna work just fine. Let's just orbit around here a little bit. Like with a frame 1. Yeah, that's gonna be fine. Cool. So let me just save this one and then we can just go straight to ZBrush and we can start playing with clay. So I'm gonna be opening as usual those shaders, you know, so you guys can copy the parameters and everything. I was trying to actually imitate like a Chavan and like in SP, you know, basically like, you know, the green and the reddish. All right, so let's pause this one. Let's save my scene here. And let's jump right into to ZBrush. It's gonna be fun. Let's hope for the best. So there is Stan. It's already saved, so I don't need to do anything with it. Let me just delete everything I don't need in here. And I'm gonna keep the eyes and the teeth because I wanna do like a clay sculpture with both, with all those pieces together. So I'm just gonna eliminate everything else here so it's light for us to work with, including the HD. I don't need HD because, you know, just gonna be importing the high resolution one. So let's do, okay. Let's delete that one as well. And this one, I, blah, 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 blah. And then let's delete this one and this one. Okay, so now we have all those pieces. So there's no way for you to delete the HD geometry if you have already in your model. So what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna duplicate this mesh. So when you duplicate, basically duplicate doesn't have the HD stuff. So I'm just gonna duplicate it and gonna just delete the original one. So now I have a clean scene. Back to 26 million polygons, which is not bad, but why do we have so many? Probably I have something else here. Let's try to delete this one as well. So another 4 million polygons went away. I don't need that. Corner, I don't need that. That's pretty clean now. I think it's because I have all those polygons from those guys. They are not HD. So 28 million polygons. Yeah, I don't need all of that. Let's see. If I go to, let's do one thing here. Yeah, it's okay. I can actually, no, actually let's optimize this thing because it's gonna be too heavy. So let's go to geometry and let's go back to teeth. And let's just keep this one like that. And that's a good resolution. I'm gonna just, actually, let's subdivide one more like this. So I can start with that resolution and see if we can increase more later. But I'm gonna delete everything else. So it's gonna be very rough at the end anyway. So I'm gonna delete higher and I'm gonna delete, no, lower I'm gonna keep. So just higher. Same for that. See, to subdivision levels, 317. Let's delete this. Delete lower, oops, delete higher. And tongue, same thing. Look at that tongue, man. Most of this detail for the tongue I got from using the noise maker, you know, and just inflating it. And of course I added some detail in there, but it's very plain right now. Underneath it should be smooth and should have detail, but I didn't do that part yet. But yeah, it's just a weird tongue right there. So let's just go back in resolution a couple of times. Like that. Let's see, 242 sounds good. Geometry. I'm just cleaning this thing up so we're not, it's not too painful. Higher. And then now we are down to 1.7 million polygons, which is great. That's all we need. So let's save this sucker. With let's add Stan HD, not HD, it's gonna be Stan Clay Fun. So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just eliminate the color of all this stuff. We don't need it. And we can try to mimic a little bit the kind of clay we're gonna be using. So you can actually feel that we're sculpting something with the actual clay. So let's pretend it's something like that. Yeah, whatever. Okay, so let's turn everything on. And the way I'm gonna approach, I'm gonna just be showing some of the brushes first on a plane like I did before. So let's just get this plane and then make a polymesh 3D. And then subdivide this guy a couple of times. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 million polygons. Sounds good. Let's, yeah, one is okay. And so I'm gonna start just showing some of my my brushes, the ones I created just for this purpose. So I'm gonna start with those guys here. Those are not it, not it, not it. I'm about clay bit, nope. Let's try, this is all skin stuff. I think it starts here, clay, so clay crack, okay. Those guys. Okay, so clay build up, we know what it is. We have this clay build up diagonal. Let's start with this one. So this is basically the clay build up that you would normally use, but just with a ramp. By default, you have like this square, right? And sometimes you switch to a round shape, but I'm using the ramp. The difference between using the regular one and using this one is that this one creates this effect like this. You know, it kind of like, it has one side that's higher than the other side. So it's really cool, you know. We can add more, you can add a little stroking here. For example, the lazy mouse, you can make a little bit smaller. So you can actually have a little bit closer, right? So you can get the marks, you know, to look more like that. This is very useful for breaking up the form at the end. So this is the first one that's very basic. You guys can make it. That's just, you know, the diagonal one. And so I have this clay build up rake in here. Let's start with the regular rake first. I want to show you what I have for the rake. It's a map like this. So by default, I have it set to stroke, right? So when I carve, I have this little effect. You're gonna see like the little borders in there, like the little, you know, overflowing of the clay. But the way I build it, let me just like draw it with a drag rectangle here. Let's use a drag rectangle instead. And then I'm just gonna draw it here. Let's try with a high intensity. It can be higher than that. Let's try like all the way 100. See, that's 100 is too much. Too much. 50. Okay, something like that. So this is basically like what it's a little bit higher than what I sculpted. Let's try less than that. I want to show similar to what I sculpted actually on a plane when I capture it. Yeah, that looks more like it. So basically what I did, I sculpted this piece, and you can see like this is kind of like a repetition, right? It's basically like a flipped version. So this is a flipped version of this one, and this one is the same as this one, and this one is the same as this one. So basically like to create this rake effect, I just duplicated it. But what I sculpted was just one of those guys. So if you pay attention to just one of them, that's basically what my idea of the clay going overboard, right? Like when you scrape the surface, would be something like this. So I tried to reproduce that, you know. It's like I tried to imagine like, okay, so if I'm digging with the tool or even with my finger, I want to have some kind of effect like that, right? So that's basically why I sculpted. So if you sculpt something like this around this depth, let's just switch here. And everything here is going to be just like a visual reference for you, of course. But the depth is about that, you know. It's like it's not super deep. And then I have all those little mountains around it. And the important thing here, I think, is to create the things that look like bits of clay. You know, it's like a little spheres that I just deformed in there and just like pressed them together. You know, and then of course, if you're doing this to create the effect that everything is going to be kind of like a placed as a roll, then it's nice if you have some you know, some kind of like surface scratching underneath. And little pieces of, you know, like pockets of air and things like that. I thought it was a good idea to just add that. So basically, like if you sculpt one of those, you can just like in Photoshop, just like flip it and then copy those two back here. So this is the same as this, and this is the same as that, basically. And this is the same as this, just flipped upside down, right? So now you have an idea about what takes to make that brush. So visually, that's basically what it is. And then, so I'm going to switch back to my dots in here, and then back to what the brush does, which is too strong. Still too strong. Which is this. And it's actually pressure based, right? So I can go like that and go like that and then stronger, right? So it has a pressure attribute in there. Let's see if we have anything special here, like in the brush. Let's see, surface modifiers, let's see. Yeah, nothing fancy here. Aperture, auto masking, tablet pressure. Let's see tablet pressure. Yeah, so that's basically what I have, the intensity here like that. And yeah, RGB we're not using, but yeah, it's nothing fancy. It's just like you can just plug something like that into your brushes and add a little bit of a stroke, you know, it's like the lazy mouse, and that should do the trick. I think the most important part is actually sculpt correctly the first track, like I showed before, and then you get this nice little effect, right? That looks like it's a natural, you know, scraping the surface. So this is one of them. So you're gonna keep it up on the top here just as like an example, right? And then let's switch to the next one. So the next one I have here is called Clay Scratch, which is exactly the same thing. So this one is the original one I sculpted. It was pretty much like this. Let's see. Still too little. It's stronger. About that, right? So that's basically what I sculpted. It's a little stronger than what I sculpted. It's more like, I don't know, 70, something like that. Yeah, that's more likely. Something like that. It's similar to the one you saw before. It's actually the same, but it's just like a single version of it. So I just added this as the same thing. And this one is the one I actually use the most for creating all those scratches when I'm marking like the center of the object. I use this guy to actually just scratch the surface. It creates very nice scratches, you know, like that. This one is too strong, but that one actually, the small one actually worked pretty well. So this is for scratches. Again, I'm gonna put this one as, oh, not that. I'm gonna put this one as an example here. Let's show you. This one is number 1, number 2. And then I have this guy here. Let's see, which ones? The crack, let's start with those guys here. Let's go in order. So the clay build-up already showed the diagonal, right? So this one's gonna be diagonal. Let's leave an example here. Too strong. Right, something like that. Diagonal, so I use that one. Switch to my, let's see. Where is it? Scratch right here. Let's name that one number 3. Oops. Number 3. And then from here, I have the build-up rake, actually. Instead of using the regular rake, the one that I just showed you guys, the clay reel rake, I created this one as a clay build-up with rake. So basically, I use the clay build-up, and I just plug that same alpha in there. And then it actually builds, you can use as a clay build-up, you know? So basically, you can go over stuff. You just have to use like in small layers, of course. And you can just like, it gives a slightly different effect, you know, when you're raking with it. It's not quite the same. It has the build-up ability on top of it. You have to use carefully, of course. So let's keep this one in mind. That's the clay build-up. It's very similar to that first one, of course, but just slightly different. And this is gonna be number 4. Oops. And then let's go back here to the crack. So this crack here is very useful, for example, like for areas like in connections, you know, for example, like the corners of the nose, close to the nostrils or things like that. Areas where I think it would break in the real clay, you know, it's like more possibility of breaking. So I built this one, which is basically like just sculpted again, like on a plane, right? It looks like this. Another, you know, visual reference if you wanna. But I mean, all this stuff here, I kind of like interpreted from like actual clay sculptures I was looking at, like references, and I found some of those forms. And I was like, oh, what about, you know, building some of those and seeing how it translates? So, I mean, it's up to you guys to based on my own here, but I would just like say, like, look for any reference of clay and try to reproduce like little bits and cracks and things like that. And it's gonna be a matter of like interpretation, of course, because I'm not going super literal about the way those things look, you know. They have to look good when I place them, but that's about it. So yeah, that's how complex it is. So not a lot of complexity there. It's just like a way of the way I saw those things, you know, in the clay sculpture. But feel free to do other stuff. So let's see, this one here, the fingerprint, same deal. This one actually I found on the internet. I found a fingerprint on the internet. But what I did when I sculpted it, instead of like just simply placing the fingerprint completely flat in the plane, I actually tried to imagine like, okay, what if I'm pressing this against the surface, right? So I'm gonna put some points of pressure. So you see like it's not completely regular. It has like shallower here, but then when it gets here, it has more pressure, right? It's like almost like if I roll my thumb on top of something. I could have like different variations of it, for example, like with the pressure in different sides, right? But in this case here, it didn't. I think the way I did, I actually just modeled it first on a plane, right? Just with using an image as an alpha, right? To start with. And then I kind of sculpted those little areas right here, and right here with the clay buildup. A little bit of the imperfections on the borders, kind of like almost like going overboard in there. And then I went to the lowest resolution and then I pulled in this area here. So nothing super fancy, just a move brush to bring it in. So it goes in a little bit, but it's not much, as you can tell. So this is the reverse of it. So that area is pretty much like is the deepest one. Yeah, just like with the stuff I do with the portraits, right? Like I always try to think about like logically, you know, use some logic. So if I'm trying to imitate like life, you always try to imagine like what's the consequence of something that's touching something else, you know. So for example, like it's very important, like gravity is important to think about, and contact between objects, you know. So like it can be like wrinkles or an eye bag, or the way the things are just like the forms pressing against each other. And in this case here, I just imagine like, okay, what if I was sculpting with my thumb, you know? That would be basically like I would have pressure in one side. It wouldn't be, you know, completely straight, right? Or shallow or something. So this is the number 6 right here. And then I have this guy here. Let's see. Crack fingerprint. So clay age polish. So I normally mix and match with certain different brushes, right? So we have the age polish brush. That's if you just press age here, right? You're going to go to age polish. But in this case here, I started with age polish, but I modified that by adding the same clay marks. So when I have that one, what happens is that if I want to smooth out, for example, like make one area chiseled, you know, it's like I kind of chiseled that area and define the planes of it. Instead of like simply defining the planes with something completely flat, I define the planes with the clay buildup, with the rake marks. So it creates a plane, but then it leaves a mark behind. I thought it was an interesting idea to just use for, you know, for that kind of stuff. I can show you later. I mean, if I define some area, I can just use that instead of like plane. So let's do that mass right there. And then I can just number it. Scratch, and it's going to be number 7. Oops. 7. And then from this guy here, I have the iris. This is very silly, actually. It's just if you're, you know, simulating like, you know, building some sculpture or something like that to look like, you know, it's like you don't want to sculpt the iris, right, manually every time. So you can just like use something like that. It's very silly. See, like there's a little dot in there, and even a little caustic effect in the opposite way. Just like, you know, you can put a bunch of the, you know, sculpt like a sphere and just add a little iris in there. So I have this one, and I think I have another one too, iris B. So it's kind of like a variation of it. It's just like goes the opposite way. So they feel very silly. It can be useful, you know, so you don't need to do over and over again. It's pretty perfect though, so you have to actually destroy it a little bit when you apply it. This is 8 and 9. So far 9 brushes. And then let's see the clay marks. So this one is a cool one I actually found in one of the sculptures I saw online. that was to see like it's very abstract almost, right? You have to see those things and interpret them, you know. And I thought that if you're marking something, obviously you're gonna get some, you know, it's like border raised, and then you're gonna have pockets of air, stuff like that. So I'm just like, it's a very silly mark, but it's very impressive what it does. You know, it's like when you apply in a context. And again, thinking about logically, if I'm gonna add a mark like that, I'm not gonna add like randomly in like any place. I'm gonna find a spot where I have like an area that's like deeper, for example. Let's pretend like you're defining the nostrils, right? And then the bottom area, like right in the muzzle, you would naturally press with your thumbs to define that area to make it deeper. So instead of like going with, you know, it's like with a brush and just making that area deeper with the clay buildup, I just mark it with something like this. And it's very, very rough, but it gives the effect that someone actually went and pressed, you know, it's like either with the finger, with the tool, and left a mark in there. So that's another one that I call clay mark. It's a very original name, right? You would never guess that that's a clay mark. And then this is number 10. Then I go to clay thin layered. I don't even know if I'm using this one. Let's see. I think I'm using this one actually. Clean. Oh, there you go. Well, apparently this one I created for some reason that just like it works to. Oh, interesting. I think I used this one after all, but it doesn't do anything on the plane. It has to have some irregular surface to do anything. So he basically like chisels it. But I don't know how I built this one. I think I started with one of those guys, probably like one of the trim ones. Let's see, it's probably one of the trims, probably like either the trim dynamic or the trim adaptive. But instead of like the default settings, right? So if I click this one, it has no alpha assigned to it. I think the only difference here is that I assigned an alpha to it, and I assigned the diagonal alpha, which gives this nice effect, right? Kind of like cut stuff, like it looks like plaster, right? Like we're making a wall or something. That's another one. I'm pretty sure I used that one before. Just like when I was trying to sculpt here, wasn't doing anything. I was like, huh, what did I do here? So this one is number 11. Bloop. And then I have a clean layer. I have this cracked in here. So this cracked, I don't think I use that much for my clay sculpture stuff. Maybe I do. I think I use more like that crack than this one. So I'm not gonna even talk about that one. And then that's about it. Everything else is porous stuff. So you see like it's a basically like 11 different brushes I use for clay. And out of this 11, basically those eyes I'm not using. So it's basically 9, right? 9 brushes. So now that we have that and you have the visual reference in there for what those things are and how they should behave, let's jump and do some work and see how they work, you know, it's like in an actual model. So let's start with this guy here, right? So the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start like making the surface more rough. So let's do that. Let's start with, oh, there's another one. There's a clay I forgot to mention. Let's go back to this one here. There is one that actually is the one I use a lot. Let's see if it's named differently. That's not it. Clay build up. There is one here. Oh, clay raised. Yeah, clay mark. No, I have more stuff here. I forgot. So the scratcher I went through, the clay real marks, yes, and the rake, yes, but those two I have to show. So clay mark B. So I have more. Yeah. So this one here, another one. You can see the alpha in there. So this one is another I sculpted on a plane based on whatever reference I found. So it looked kind of like that. You see like it goes a little deeper. Let's just switch this to double. So it has a little depth to it from the back, and it looks like this. I can make it even stronger so you can actually see. Let's try 58. So you see it looks like that. Again, like the edges are real raised, you know, it's like there's a little bit of marks in around there, a little pockets of air, you know, it's like imperfections. That's another one I use. It's actually one of my favorites to add some randomness to everything. This one is going to be number 12. And then the last one we're going to be this guy here, which is clay raised. So this one, again, I sculpted in a plane, something like this, which is very silly. It doesn't have a lot of variation in it. I could potentially add more stuff to it. But the way I normally apply this is just like in a couple of layers like that. You know, I add like with different, you know, sizes, so I can actually add some variation. And in context, this is gonna look like it's something that's raised, like you put like the little pieces of clay, like a little ball, and just like squeezed it, you know, it's like just pressed with your finger and rubbed it. Yeah, it works very nicely as well. So this is number 13. So out of 13, we actually use 11 of them, right? That's kind of like what I'm gonna use during the demo. So that's gonna be number 13. Right, so let's do some demo here. Let's go for the fun stuff. Let's see how I start with this guy here, because normally when I start doing this mess, I start with a model that's much smoother than this. But it's nice that I have all these pores and everything. I guess I can smooth it out a little bit. Let's try that. To smooth things a little bit. It's not super pory, if that's a word. Because I don't want to get like pore detail in my clay sculpture if it's a rough thing, right? So I'm just gonna smooth it out a little bit. Get rid of those little guys. I want to sell the illusion that it's actually rough surface. So let's pretend this is my clay sculpture, and I just have to, you know, make it rough now. So I would start with marking some stuff to pretend this was all planned, right? But it's actually not. So I can start like by carving things. Like let's just like mark the center line. Oh, and let's go to a higher resolution as well. I have only 1 million polygons. I think we can work with 4 million. It should be enough to capture some of that stuff. Let's see, how far can I get here? It looks gonna look pretty good. Look, at 4 million, I already have the stuff I need. Can get even higher than that, 20. And you can see the brush in there, like the alpha, right? Looks like this. That's basically the one I showed you before. It's kind of like the generic one for rake and for everything else. So now you have a visual reference for that. So just gonna mark, and then of course I don't need to make a perfect mark. I can actually break it out, and pretend that I was actually, you know, I was like trying to mark, but you can go even higher, bigger with the brush. And again, it can be very irregular like that. Let's pretend I'm just, you know, it's like trying to find the center line, but not quite. That got a little too messy here. I think I got the center off too much. Let's get something more like that. That looks better. So that's gonna be the first thing I'm gonna start. For example, now let's pretend we are trying to find out, you know, the height for the eyebrows. So I can do similar thing. Something like that, a little mark, and I can go all the way across. Because let's pretend in my plan here, I was trying to find the height for the ears. So that one already went too badly. So let's go back here. Let's try to go more towards this direction here, kind of establish that. It can be very imperfect. Actually, it's pretty good if it's imperfect. Like that. And then anything you can find, you know, it's like if you're, for example, like, let's do this, you know, it's like you can mark those areas like the eye bags. You can mark something like that. Because you're, you know, let's pretend we're just in the process of finding those proportions, but obviously you already have a lot, you know, building there, but they don't need to know that, right? We can just pretend we are like in the process of doing what we're doing. So let's see, from here I can actually, okay, in my plan I was, oh yeah, I did like, I tried to find out that relationship, so I start doing some triangulation, you know. It's all about, you know, make-believe, make-believe. So those areas, well, same thing, like if there's like a strong mark in the expression, I can actually just define those as well. You know, it's like everything like very roughly. And then let's go here. And this model is way too refined already. So it's gonna take more time to actually mess it up. You see, I'm going like crazy here. I'm not like even paying too much attention. I should be more careful actually, if I want to make sure that things look half decent. But I'm being a little messy here. Mark those lines. Almost like careless, right? Like kind of like control, but not quite controlled. Let's see, maybe something more interesting would be around here. Let's mark that. And then maybe some lines right there. Here is going to be interesting because we're going to use some of those brushes I show you just to add the indentations and everything. So that's going to be fun to just add some of that. But it's after you have all those pieces together, it's just like it's similar to what we did with alphas for the pores, right? At first glance, it doesn't look like anything until you start seeing all the parts coming together, and then things really start working. So for this, I can actually go like, see, like I have this clay scratch, but I also have this one here, which I didn't talk about, this clay real marks, which is basically the same thing, is just thicker. So this one here I use sometimes like for areas like that, like just to mark like big ones. I could use the same one actually, but this one is actually like pretending I'm using like a bigger tool, just like really mark those things. So if I'm, you know, in the process of establishing my clavicle, I can just do that. And then now here, let's start playing with some of those other brushes, right? So the first one I'm gonna try here, it's gonna be the cracks. So the cracks, like I said before, I like to add them in those areas where you can actually pretend that things would actually break, right? So for example, if there is a cavity like that, I'm probably gonna add a crack right here, something like that. Areas of stress, right? Like that the clay might stress and break, like the corner in there. And maybe like corner of the eye, something like that. And it doesn't need to look pretty. It has to look logical, you know, because you have to remember you are tricking an audience, right? So it has to look logical. It's something that you do consciously, right? It's not like a random effort. You're thinking about like, okay, what's happening in the real world when something, you know, like a, you know, there was one area that's a little bit more likely to crack, right? So we kind of like imagine that. At the end of the day, we're just playing a little game. Corner of that, and then maybe a little quarter here. So just like looking for areas of stress where things could potentially break. In here, maybe the lid itself could have a crack, right? Because we don't want like a perfect line. Let's add some of those in there. Now let's switch to something else. Let's see, like the clay mark A, this one here. And that's the one I told you guys, like I like to think about, for example, if I'm pressing an area like that, I'm pretending I'm coming with a tool and I'm trying to establish the depth of that area, right? So I'm gonna come with a brush like that, especially for ears. This is perfect for this area, for example, right? So I'm defining that little dimple in there. I can do the same for this one. And once you render, those things really pop, you know. It doesn't look like much in here, but once you really have the area completely covered, those things really starting to pop. And then some areas, it can be very random. It doesn't need to make a whole lot of sense, but I like to make some sense. So here, for example, I can add like a big one like that. Pretending you're coming with different sizes of tools, right? Because at the end, when everything mixes together, people are not gonna notice that's the same shape at all. Their eye's gonna be like all over the place looking for stuff. Same here, like in this little corner, right? I can use right there, and I can use maybe one right here. Make it imperfect. It has to follow the structure, but it doesn't have to be perfect. Same around there. And then you can even add like a bigger one here, for example, and just leave it like that. This is pretty cool. Like when you render it, this really adds a nice little touch. So this one it does a similar thing, right? Again, like I'm gonna use one of those to make a big mark like that, for example, around there. This is like a little bit too symmetrical now. Let's try in a different spot. Make sure that we don't have things too symmetrical. Let's do that. And then here, I can make this area here very rough. Just like that. Something like that. The angle as well. If I'm constantly doing the same angle, it's not gonna sell the idea. So let's change the angle a little bit. And this one is too like in the same line. So let's do that around there. And then let's find some areas that actually make more sense. That. For now, it looks like a zombie, right? It looks like stuff is. And then this guy here, the clay rays that I just showed you, this is the one actually adds a very nice touch, right? Like it builds up. So for example, like you come with a little ball of clay and then you roll it and then you just like spread it, right? And then when you build it up like that in different layers, you got that nice little effect, you know? So the ear, same thing here. I can pretend like around this area, I came with tiny little balls of clay and I just start rolling them. Again, doesn't look like much here, but just you wait to see this render. You're gonna really see all those little things, and it's gonna really start like tricking your eye, you know, like to believe that there's actually a physical piece. Pieces like that, right? Let me do some of that, maybe like in the neck around here. Although I already have that one, so let's do it in a different spot. Maybe just like splatter it here. Different angles as well. Just mix it so it doesn't look like it's the same pattern. It's just, you know, imperfections. And then I have that diagonal clay build up that's really gonna help to take it to town. Let's build a little bit around the nose in here. It's using some logic, right? Like, oh yeah, if I'm spreading clay, I'm probably gonna put a little ball in here and try to define those areas. Not very symmetrically. Let's get to something else here. What about, so we already used a bunch of those. Let's start using some rake now. So clay, build up rake, real rake. So it's the same deal. Let's rake some areas here. So let's destroy some areas here. So especially like if you're defining an area like the temporalis, right? It's probably gonna start like digging a little bit with the rake. We're gonna do that. Let's see. I can do even like very strongly, something like that. Let's see. And I'm gonna do like in different sizes as well, because maybe you're using like a different sizes of tool. And then for the nose, then I came here and I was actually really trying to find that form in there with the rake. brush, right? Maybe I got with I got around here, and I just like use the rake slightly just in there, trying to find that little form. Same for here. Don't want to do too parallel and symmetrical, but something like that. Definitely here I would use some rake to actually define that entire area. You can leave it actually pretty rough if you want to. I'm just doing like, you can see like very roughly. Got too pretty in there, but we can always destroy that some more. And at the end, if you keep doing this all over the place, you're going to end up with something that is going to sell. It's too much right here. Starting to get a little too over the top. That's that, just a little here, different directions. And maybe like rake it towards the brows. Maybe a smaller one, like peaks are pretty clean still. Okay, let's get some more of that stuff. Let's see, this cracked, pulling not that one. Let's see, clay build up diagonal. So this one here, I'm gonna add like some thin layers now. Let's start like doing the opposite way, this way. Get some of the lids too. And you don't have to worry too much about obliterating some of the forms, because that's the intention, right? You want to make sure it reads like it's a rough surface. So I can even like exaggerate some of the muscles. And my gesture here is very important, right? Because this is not like simply like rolling and then hoping that everything is going to be perfect. I'm using like a lot of speed and really bending my wrist when I do it. So I have this more organic feel to it, you know, kind of like almost like if you are actually doing this with your hand with the clay, right? So kind of like you pull it and just very freely, you just like pull the clay in those directions, you know. But yeah, it's not like a super, it's controlled, but it's not like something precise. It's just like very fluid movement. And I'm doing this in a zigzag, right? So I'm not doing always like the same direction like that. I'm actually very, very fastly doing like side to side. So like I go one side and the other side to build up those little lines. Like side to side, like zigzag. So like this one really helps to put things together, right? Like you don't give much to this brush until you start using it. And then when you start using it, it's like, man, it's so cool because you can really get the sense of adding like thin layers of stuff. I can really mark those areas. It has to look expressive at the end, you know, that's the whole point. If it's too controlled, too precise, it doesn't sell. If it's too full of patterns, it doesn't sell. But if you have random enough and done in a way that actually looks like actual gesture, then things really start to work. So that's the focus here. Like drawing with the clay, you know, just drawing in a very free form kind of way. It's the thing that, you know, when people ask for free brushes and stuff that they don't get is that the brush is just part of the trick, that the gesture is going to play a huge part of it. And yeah, I mean, building the brushes is just the first part of it. The rest is actually just using gesture and, you know, your artistic abilities, I guess. Okay, so let's do that. Kind of like, yeah, let's see what time that is, because I still want to do, oh, we're pretty good. Still have over an hour. Because I want to do this and then bring to Maya with no UVs or anything, because you're just going to play with it, right? So this is going to be like a high resolution mesh at 4 million polygons. That should be totally fine for Arnold to render. And since we are here, I mean, like, let's just add a little pseudo mustache, right? Just a little mention of it, because we're going to be doing, you know, he has to look like the guy, and we don't have all the guide splines. So I'm just going to paint an impression of it, and we can do some scratches in there as well. That's the thing that I actually miss sometimes, you know, it's like doing all those portraits, is that this kind of exercise, to me, it's much more artistic in a way, because it's just about gesture and expression. While like doing the portraits is basically all control, right? Everything is about control. So from time to time, I like to just like let it go and just sketch things, and that part is really fulfilling, you know. Of course, I don't talk all the time when I'm doing it, so I'm kind of like in the zone, and I cannot be in the zone if I'm talking to you guys, but I'm having fun here anyway. Let's do this. Let's get some of those wrinkles, right? Because we want to pretend actually laying down those little piece of clay. And then, of course, you can add the little pieces of clay later. Just let me make sure I cover a lot of areas here. So there's no, you need to have like areas of rest for your eyes, right? Like in anything, when it comes to sculpture, you know, it's like you see those overly detailed models in at ZBrush Central for many years. And it's all about the alphas, right? Like, so just like plaster it with alphas and call it the day. But then some of them have no area of rest, right? And by area of rest, like I'm not even saying like a completely uncovered area, but I say like some areas that have a little bit more smoothness to it. And then you go to something right on the side it looks much more complex. So your eye actually has rhythm to keep the interest, you know. Your eye goes side to side and finds something interesting and then moves to the next thing and then rests a little bit and then go to the next thing instead of like being completely lost. So obviously, if I'm trying to emulate like a rough surface, I'm going to cover most of it here, but I'm going to keep certain areas slightly more smooth, you know, just like with the intention of keeping things interesting. I'm going to come back, of course, like with the rake and redo some of those areas and remark other ones until I'm happy with the marks. And this, I'm using a lot of control with the pressure as well. You see, certain points I barely touch the surface, and in certain points I just go and really mark it. So it's a matter of like, you know, like everything, I think like every single step during this whole class, I told you guys, when it comes like to skin detail, both the sculpture part and the painting part, it's all about varying the scale and the speed and the intensity, right? So if you do those things, I mean, like you get a lot of variations with a single tool just by using gesture and pressure, you know, in direction. So you see, like now we're starting to get a little bit of a feel of clay, but we still have ways to go here because we can still like add like some little balls of clay, like imperfections and things like that. I can remark the surface. I can use some more rake in certain areas. So let's go back to the clay, to the scratch one. And I'm gonna remark some stuff here. I'm gonna really dig in those wrinkles. Shorten on this side so it's not like a perfect thing, right? Parallel and symmetric. I'm gonna define that little line in there. Like I said before, it's like it's a drawing, right? You're drawing with the tool on the surface of the clay, and that's how you have to imagine it. And you see, like the way I work is basically like I don't over detail one area before going to the next one. I go all over the place and I do a similar treatment everywhere in different areas. And then I go back to that same spot later on with some other stuff, you know. That way I can keep like a consistent amount of worked areas, right? So here again, like the lips, let's pretend we are just trying to define what his lips are. So I can go like very roughly like that and pretend that we are just like scraping the surface and still studying, right? Like it's not like we have anything defined and perfect yet. We are just like studying and trying to find out all those proportions and distances. So even here, I can actually, you know, like maybe use some diagonal to try to find out that relationship. Add a little bit deeper in there. Can add a deep middle line in here. A bit too deep. Let's try a little bit less than that. Then same with those guys. Corners. The intention here is not to keep like anything too perfect, right? Because we had a very perfect model before. Not perfect in the perfect model, but perfect in the how smooth the surface was. So now let's see other areas. Let's dig that one really deep here too. Same here. He has the squint, so I'm gonna just add some more of that squint right there. Anything to make it more imperfect. So he has his smile here. We don't have a lot of definition of the zygomatic, but we can actually just scrape the expression in there. Same with this one. Let's just bring it down. More squarish. Very deliberate, but controlled, you know. It's controlled without hyper precision, of course. It's controlled and free at the same time. So here I can actually cut it. Because again, I can pretend I'm trying to establish that relationship right there. Same here. Draw a line. Down. Let's add some more of those marks in here to pretend it's his mustache. that I'm trying to establish. Oh shit. Yeah, ZBrush has this thing sometimes it's just like it shoots, right? Like one of those lines when you have the lazy mouse on, it shoots across the entire model and then creates this line. And sometimes you don't notice. And you have to be careful with that if you're sculpting HD, sometimes that happens and cuts your model from across. And then all of a sudden you save your file and then now you have that line that you have to try to eliminate later. So you have to be very careful with that. And it only happens when this with clay lazy mouse on. With off, it doesn't work. It doesn't happen. And it's there, like this bug is there like for so many years, never fixed. And even like come here and maybe like try to find out, for example, where is the whole line of the temporalis with the brow ridge, right? And find my zygomatic here somewhere. Even here, right? You can cut the zygomatic and just pretend we're establishing it. It looks pretty messed up. That's how we like it. It's not too pretty here around the eye, so let's do some more cuts. I tell you, this is very fun. Just to obliterate the form. It's kind of it's a little sense of freedom too, you know, because I polished this model like for weeks now, right? And just like making sure that the likeness is there, blah blah blah, and try not to destroy anything. And then you come here now, it's like, oh yeah, now it's my turn. Now you're gonna get it. Not that one. Okay, so that's pretty messed up. Let's do a little bit more work and then we can bring this to Maya. Now that I have all this surface basically covered, or a lot of it covered, now we can actually think about adding some bigger like fingerprints and things like that. Let's do that. Let's get some fingerprints here. Let's see. Clay fingerprint. Let's get that one, a big one right there. Thing is, like, I don't have a lot of resolution, and without a lot of resolution, sometimes it gets a little silly because you know get the like perfect impression. Everything is a good candidate, and the size makes it look like the model it's a little small, right? It's a small scale, something like that. You can add one like right there, like in a unusual spot, just to add imperfection to it. Let's pretend like, you know, just like, oh, later on I'm gonna clean it up, but I'm still in the process of just touching things. And all right, so let's get this, some more clay marks from there, here. Yeah, once you have the entire area messed up, you can actually go to town with that. And then you almost like, you don't, once you pass a certain threshold, you know, it's like you can just go crazy with it. and you can tell that the form is there, and then it's not gonna get too much messier than what it is, and then you can just like really try to incorporate more things, right? For the eyes, let's see if those things gonna work or not, like the little brushes that I have for eyes. Let's see if I use one of those, if it does anything interesting. Play this one. Let's use no symmetry. That gonna look too crazy? It might. Let's see this one, or is it iris A? That's funny. I thought it would be going down more. It's actually kind of keeping the surface. It's because I have that reversed, I guess. Yeah, let's do this. Let's just reverse that bump first. So I'm gonna get the move brush. Let's try to reverse that. Let's change the focal shift a little bit. That's too much. Something like that. Okay. And then let's try this and see if it works. Doesn't have to be too pretty, but might be a little bit too deep now. So let's try less. That should work. And then you can make a little crazy, right? I can put a little crack somewhere. A little crack right there. Another one here. One there. Even inside. Why not? Doesn't have to be perfect. And then maybe some which one is that? Trim adaptive, clay build up diagonal. Okay, that's that. Add the little diagonal in there, just for imperfection. There you go. And do a similar thing for the teeth. And just the top teeth is going to be kind of visible anyway. So let's see, Control T. And even like messed up, kind of like blend. The clay build-up is cool because it goes across stuff, right? Although it doesn't blend the model itself, it looks like it's blending because it pulls things together. Just establish that. And then we can come up with something here. Let's see. If you add some marks like the raised one. Bad teeth. And then let's get our trusty scratch brush. Establish that. Let's see what else we can do here. Back to this guy. And let's see what's missing. What's missing is like little balls of clay, I think, and then we can kind of start wrapping up to get this to Maya. So let's get which one's the brush I'm going to use? It's a good one to do it here. Let's try with the standard. Let's see, where was my standard? This one. And then the standard, I can actually use another brush. Let's try 35, maybe with a low focal length and a very high intensity, like, let's see, 27. And less sharp than that. Let's get something like this. That's not what I want. Let's try with, there is the clay build-up, I think would be a better choice for that. Let's try clay build-up with this one. And like a very high intensity. That should work. So clay build-up intensity 21. That's what I'm using right now. So I'm gonna just like pop a couple of like little balls of clay like that in random spots. That looks like a mole. If you're going to sculpt it, you have to actually sculpt in a way that looks like it's a little bit detached from the rest of the surface, because otherwise start looking like moles. I'm going to just build them a little bit to the sides like that. If I just, yeah, sculpt a little bit to the sides, then they start looking like they're kind of like starting to come off the surface. Like that. Just maybe a few more. I mean, it's just like, it all depends on how far you want to take this, right? How rough you want the surface. So let's try that. I had that brush that I thought I wasn't using, and then I thought I was using. Is the one that actually makes everything quite flat. Which one is that? The thin layered, clay thin layered. That's pretty cool, actually. It's gonna establish like planes for me. So I can actually clean up certain areas with it at the same time, like adding some imperfection to it. The entire area here, let's see. It almost looks like plaster. Oh, that's a good candidate right here. Look, this line here is a perfect candidate for that kind of stuff. I even like what I did with the breaking up the border in there. If you're going to establish planes, you better do in areas that actually deserve it. Something like that. See the mouth, maybe we can get some interesting planes right here. Especially here. Flat. It's starting to look like clay. Now those big areas here, those are good candidates for that brush. Look at that, just break it up. Let's break it up, man. I love that it's creating those little pockets in there, you know? That's what we want, like the effect of, you know, little air bubbles or things trapped. This is a very useful brush. You see, like when it goes on top of the rake, what it does, kind of like cuts over it. It's a pretty cool effect. So now that we obliterated a lot of the rake, let's just do some more raking here and then get this done. Maybe get some very strong ones around here. Something like that. Let's see, around here. That's not a good place. Let's see, right there. Maybe here. Yeah, something like that. Nose got a little bit too clean. So let's just get some of that. And then just to top it all, I don't like when I crisscross that too much. I'd rather get just a plane in there. So let's first establish some lines. And then we can establish the planes right after. Go back to this guy here. Where is it? The clay thin layered. Just get those lines flat. Okay, you guys think it's gonna look like clay when I render this thing? I hope so. I really hope so, because that's the whole plan. I can keep doing this forever, I guess, but we have to move on because the intention here is to show the process, not to actually finish the piece, right? Although it'd be nice to actually just post later on my Instagram just to show that we did some clay studies tonight. So I'm gonna make it nicer before I post, but it's gonna be basically this guy here. Okay, so, oh man, can I stop? Last part. Let's just get some more of those scratches. Again, those are important actually. They really sell it. And I can even do a little. Oh, too much. Okay, let's do it. Before I go crazy like too much here. All right, let's sign it here. Look. That's May 19th. Sweet. All right, so let's export this guy here. We have 4 million polygons. So we don't need any UVs or anything like that. We don't really need it. So we stand clay 1. I could have like defined more planes around the lips and things like that, but you know, you get the idea. And that was pretty. Oh, dude, I didn't open for questions, but you guys can ask anything. I mean, like you guys know the drill by now. Less class, you guys should know. But yeah, I was supposed to tell you guys. Oh, it's 10:30, but you know, you can talk. You're not in timeout. Oh, maybe I should have like destroyed the UVs before I exported because it's still adding the UVs in there. I think for the tongue, I just gonna ignore for now. It's not gonna show that much. But later, before I post, I'm probably gonna just do a little mess up with it, same way I did with the rest of the face. And then I think the important part here is just the eyes and the teeth, the top teeth. The bottom one's barely visible anyway. and I have to go through the shaders and do the render and all that stuff. I think I got carried away a little bit, got a little late, but I think we can do it. It's taking a long time to export. Only 4 million polygons, that shouldn't be too bad. The years got a little too clean too. I wish I messed it up more, but again, it's just to show you the whole process. And I think I show like enough tools in there to give the idea. So let's see. Teeth. Oh man, just now is writing the object. Anyway, so let's go back here while we are waiting, and let's explore the scene. So I'm gonna delete this guy. Actually, before I delete, I'm gonna copy the shaders and everything. But I'm gonna show you this thing here. So this object here, if I show you, I built this thing like I think like 2 years ago as a test, and I really liked it because if you look at those macro photography examples of like eyeballs, you know, when they are photographing the irises, it has this very interesting reflection in all those shots, which is basically like a little grid. And the way it works is basically like it's a softbox. Those ones are called the octabox, right? Because they have like 8 sides. And then they have this grid in the front of it. The function of the grid is actually to direct the light. So basically like make all the light rays parallel, right? Like it shoots that way. And it's very interesting because as you vary the thickness of the grid, you get different effects. So you're gonna get like much more directional if you go this way and much more spread out if you go this way, right? So I built this thing physically as a test, and it actually worked very nicely, and I really like the results. First, I get like the reflection that looks that little grid, kind of like a honeycomb kind of thing. And to create that light itself, this is one thing I didn't show you guys how to do. You can transform any object into a light in Arnold, right? So what I did, I actually created a cylinder with like 8 sides like that. And then I chopped the bottom part, deleted a couple of vertices, and I got like this flat little plane right here that looks like an octagon. And then you can go, let's pretend this is just a polygon, right? Like you just generated. So you go to Arnold, and you can just say lights, and you can say mesh light. So when you click that one, it transforms that object, it can be any object again, into a light. So in this case here, those are the properties of the octa light object shape. It's the same stuff as we had before, you know. I turn off the normalize. In this case here, the temperature you can control, right? You can use the temperature here. And the other thing you can do in that SIBL website, where I pointed you guys at some point to the HDRI maps, they have some HDRI maps in there that are actually octaboxes and soft boxes. So you can actually plug one of those HDRI maps into the color in here, and then you have kind of like a physically accurate version of octabox, right? Or a soft box. So you can use that as color if you want to. In this case here, I had the color blue, but this is basically being overwritten by this one. So the temperature 8,000 Kelvin. It's slightly bluish, but it's almost like daylight. Daylight would be like 7,000 something. But 8,000 shouldn't be much more. It would be like kind of like a hazy day, right? Something like that. So yeah, I think this is gonna be a cool one to show you guys. Let's go back here. Let's unhide everything. So I have one of those in here and another one in here, a smaller one. So this is a backlight, and this one is it's the front light, right? The key light. For the cloth itself, I started from in Maya. So I created this object. It was just a plane, and I had it like rigged, like attached to a pole. And then what I did, I actually had a plane right below it, and I started actually dragging this thing through the floor and simulating the whole thing. You have this end cloth in Maya. You can do some tutorials. I have no time to show it today, but it's called end cloth. And then you can actually simulate cloth just doing cloth simulation here in Maya. And then I basically like dragged this thing across the floor until I got this shape. And then I turn into this, you know, round surface in here. And then now I have this nice little curtain as a background. that I can use. So, and then for the lighting itself, I have those two lights in there. I have this other one here that's a big one. That was a cylinder. It's another of those object lights, right? And then this one is actually simply like an umbrella light, but without the umbrella being built like physically like I did with the octoboxes. So it's just the light itself. It's a big source, as you can tell. And let's see what I have in the color. I just had a ramp as a color. So it's a circular ramp to look more like a soft box, you know. So it's probably like brighter in the center and then dark in the borders. So I have this one in intensity 2. All is going to be depending of your scene, of course. So this one is intensity 2, and it's very far, so it shouldn't affect that much. Then this one here, I have intensity of 3. And this one here is a smaller one, so intensity should go higher to be able to compensate for the size. So let's see, what's that? So 1.5, yeah, 1.5, but I'm much closer to the object as well. So it all gonna depend of your scene, of course, right? So let's see now in terms of the shaders. So shaders, let's explore that. I have two shaders here, and they are both basically the same thing. It's just a different color. So the first one is gonna be the clay red. I'm gonna just like expand it. So graph input and output. So I have clay red in SP, and then I have an ambient occlusion pass shader right here, right? So the ambient occlusion is, if you go to shaders in here, under Arnold, the first one you're gonna see is AI ambient occlusion. So that's the one I'm using. So if you click the properties of the material itself, that's basically what I'm using. I'm using like the default 0.8 in here. For the color, I'm plugging ambient occlusion right here. So if you go to it, the ambient occlusion, I changed the values to those values here. If you want to copy, you can pause the video later and do it. And then basically, like instead of the white color, I'm actually colorizing the white to be kind of like a clayish kind of color, right? So those are the colors I'm using. In HSV, those are the values: 15, 0.474, 0.084. You can tweak it if you want. Those are my preferences, actually. And then if I keep scrolling here, the specular is set to 0.3, completely white. And then roughness is very high, 0.6. Index of refraction is 1.3. Transmission, there's nothing because it's not transparent. Subsurface. Subsurface, you see, I'm not making completely subsurfacey. So that means in this case here, it's going to be taking this information from the base and applying to it. So it's mixing 50% of subsurface and 50% of whatever I had for the base. For the color of the subsurface, I'm using this one, 17, 0.769 and 0.144. And then this is the old random walk. I never changed it because this is an old scene. It's from 2018, like January 2018. And the scale is very small, right? There is no front scatter. Actually, there's front scatter, but I'm not exaggerating it. It's just the default 0. And then coat, I have a little bit more coat in here, 150. This is for secondary specular, right? 0.150 at roughness 0.4 and index of refraction 1.350. And the sheen, nope, not using sheen. And then emission, nothing. Geometry, nothing. No bumps or anything. So that's about it for the red. Now for the green one, it's basically the same thing. I can just give you the values for the color itself of the ambient occlusion. And so basically it's the same stuff, but here the ambient occlusion is going to be a different color, which is everything is the same here, but this one is going to change to 46.154, 0.474, and 0.084. And then if you go back here to the subsurface, I also going to change that one. 41.539, 0.603, and 0.107. And the rest is going to be exactly the same. So those are basically the clay shaders I'm using. So let's just delete this guy for now. It's a heavy mesh, so sometimes it takes a long time to just select them. Let's get this, delete, delete. delete. Oh, those are the metals. I have all those guys hanged with metals. And this is a little base I have that I just built, like it's kind of shiny. It's just to have something to attach the model to, so it's not floating in the middle of the air. And let's go back to ZBrush and export the rest, which is basically the eyes. It should be too bad. So let's export that. Eyes, clay. And then the teeth. Like I said before, tongue and the bottom teeth, I'm not gonna worry about it for now. I'm just gonna get those guys in there so we can keep going. See what time that is. It's almost 11, so I'm gonna speed up to get a little render in there and then try to do a little comp as well to make it look nice. And if I have to go a little bit overboard today, it's fine too. You know, it's like it's the last day. Can go a little longer if necessary. So that's done. And then now let's play with this. So let's get this in Maya. Let's just make sure I have this one saved, single object, right? Just remember that one at all times. Let's import my objects. Starting with, let's start with teeth. I don't even know what's the position this is gonna pop. Maybe it's a different position. I'm gonna have to reposition it here. Still loading. Oh, you know what? I might have the render going in the background. That's why it's getting a little slow. Let's see. No, actually it stopped. Okay. Well, the teeth popped right down there, so I'm gonna have to move everything up. So no problem. Let's try eyes. And then the last one should be the, it's 500 megs, so it should take a little bit to load, but it shouldn't be too bad. Yeah, you see, like in the past, I was using the scale that was bigger than what I'm using now. That's more accurate with the real world scale. So that means that this head is probably like, yeah, it's life size for the head, but the rest of the environment is almost like 1.1 or 2 times bigger. So I can actually decrease the whole environment too, you know, like reduce the size of the whole environment. I can do that. You know what? I can just, I'm gonna scale the head up because, I mean, we are not dependent too much of the subsurface anyway, so I can actually grow, it's fine. Let's just grow it and get done. Still loading. There you go. I see something. There you go. So let's see. We have those 3 objects. Let's just group them all, and then center my pivot. Move them up from there. Actually, the size is pretty good. I thought it was too small, but looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit bigger. Maybe not. It's actually pretty good. See if the cylinder is going through something. No, it's good. So now we have our stand, clay stand, right there. Inside of the mouth is very clean, but hopefully it's not gonna show. So let's assign a shader here, and let's do, maybe we can do like to play with it, do the teeth in a different clay. So let's do red. And then let's pick the teeth and do green. Okay. So now let's try a little render. Let's see what happens. See, like there's this slight rotation of the camera. That's what I say. I told you guys the other day, you know, it's like to make it more natural, instead of like having that perfect aligned camera, sometimes it's good to just add a tiny little bit of a roll, you know, go to camera tools and then you just do a little roll like that. So you have a slight rotation like that. It's almost like someone was trying to, you know, with the camera, like handheld, trying to make things parallel to the ground, but, you know, it's like having trouble with it, simply like shaking or whatever. So always like trying to imitate life somehow, right? Let's see what's the camera angle I have here. Looks a little wide. No, it's 85. So 85 looks pretty good. So let's do that. Let's go to this window, and let's just see what happens. Hoping for the best. Right there. It's gonna take a little bit to load into memory. There are no maps, but I mean, like, it has to load the entire high-res mesh into Arnold, so it has to translate it. Shouldn't be too bad though. Oh, here it comes. And from that angle, it's going to be hard to see anything. So let's just bring it a little bit more of a rotation like that. Yeah, let's see like that. Something like this, maybe. Let's try. Save the camera. Let it render for a little bit so we can just look at it. See, the ears could be much more messed up than they are right now, but let's hope we can get this render done, and then we can actually comp it and do some tricks in there. Actually reduce the sample, so I hope it doesn't take too long to render. I don't think it does. I don't have the depth of field on in here. I would, if I was like rendering something to post, to look like it's a perfect, you know, replica of like a physical object. I would actually use the depth of field in here. But in this case here, I'm just gonna fake the depth of field by blurring things in Photoshop. So it's gonna take a little bit to render. This area is already rendering. The little piece of clay in there. This one looks a little bit like a mole, but this one is gonna look better. Yeah, the depth of field really adds to the realism of the entire thing. And here in this case, you're not seeing it yet, but I can do like a fake version in Photoshop, and you can see it. It's not too bad. The speed's not too bad. I just wish like my light was actually rotated slightly different, so it could catch some more stuff. But I think it's gonna be okay. So interesting. There's like a little artifact in here that's kind of interesting. It looks like there's dust mixed in it. I don't know what is that. What caused that actually? Look at that. But it's sure it's interesting. Yeah, I don't know if I show you guys this before, but by preferences, while this thing renders on the side here, when it comes to the way that I render things using Arnold, under system in here in the render properties, I normally bring this one all the way down to 16, so it's like tiny, right? Like tiny little tiles, much smaller than the default ones, and I use spiral. This way, basically, like always starts from the center of the image, and the center of the image is normally where the interest is. So I can actually start evaluating things as it happens right here, right? And because they're tiny tiles, and this computer has like 32 threads, kind of like, you know, a bunch of them going to start working together. And to see those little tiles, if you want to do that, you can go to View, actually not View, but Window. Let's see, where is it? Show render tiles right here. So this way you're gonna see them. So you see like all my threads, right? The little cores working. So there's a bunch of them. We should have 32 or some. So once one is done, jumps to the next one and keep going in the spiral. And once he hits the curtains in here, should be a little faster too. Although everything has shading and yeah, it should be kind of like, it's not like a background. It should still take some time, but not too badly. Let's see how we're doing with time. 11:08. Do you guys have any questions about this while this is rendering? We can talk about stuff. How are you guys feeling about, you know, this whole experience so far? I mean, like, one thing that I would expect would be more like renders from the get-go from you guys. I mean, like, as a matter of like just testing and being curious about it. But I told you guys from the get-go as well that there is no pressure, you know. It's like, it's just like, it's a completely free form kind of class. But my way of helping you guys to improve is basically by seeing what you have done so far, right? So if you're not showing a lot of stuff done, then it's hard for me to tell you how you can improve your work, you know. So that's why I'm encouraging you guys to post stuff and participate of the questions and answers, you know. And we have the reviews coming up this Saturday. It's going to be the same deal. It's going to be at 9 in the morning and then 9 at night. It's going to be like first come, first served, right? And then we're going to do the same deal. I mean, like, if you have most of the people in the morning, the leftovers are going to go through at night. And then if you could not make either one of them, everything's going to be recorded, so you're going to get your feedback anyway. And I'm going to be basically like evaluating anything you guys have to show me. It can be anything. Let me see if I have. I thought I had this thing here. Oh, this is the render from last night, by the way. See, the hair is pretty crazy right now. This one in the top. So I didn't post this one on my Instagram because it was kind of crappy. But yeah, gonna be working on it some more probably tonight. But this one here, let's see. Where's my render? Where's the render? Render view. Dude, I think I just canceled it. I think I just canceled my render. It wasn't on purpose because I'm trying to find it. It's just hidden somewhere. Where did it go? Let me just minimize this. I moved to the other screen and then all of a sudden, like, it's gone. Sometimes what happens is that this render here kind of obliterates it. That's weird. I had two of them? This one is supposed to happen. Oh, it's weird because this one was actually a Maya render view. And then for some reason, I actually switched to Arnold. I've never seen this before. Oh, it's there. Okay, yeah, it's weird. It switched to Arnold render view. So, okay, I'm not gonna go torture you guys with the whole render, but you're gonna get like the idea of it. So this is gonna be, let's pretend this is completely finished, right? Or I can do this as well, like so we can save some time. Let's just finish the render just at the top in here. So I don't have to render the entire thing again. Let's see if we can do that. At least like the head would be nice to have something rendered in there. Same position, yes. Okay, let's get that done. And then here in Photoshop, let's start, you know, preparing this whole thing. So you guys saw those renders from today. So I'm just gonna close them. Not saving anything. I barely have anything done to the images. Everything is kind of like done with a little bit of comp, but not much. And let's see all those guys. This is like the other ones from yesterday as well. So we're gonna close this guy, close this guy, close, and this guy, close. I have so much stuff open here. Get all of this closed. Ding, ding, ding. Let's see how our render is doing so far. Oh, it's almost like It's almost done. It's good. I'm actually rendering just like 800 pixels. That's good. It's going to be fast. A little more. Let's see, maybe. Yeah, we don't need to do the neck. I think we have enough information to see what's going on. Although this part here looks very nice, it would be nice to see at least a little sliver. So let's wait in here. And I'm just going to render that a little bit as well. Because there's some like deep marks in there. It would be nice to see the contrast between the shallow stuff and the heavy marks. So now I can just stop it right there. Turn this off, move over here, click it again, and just like pick this area here just to get the neck, just that little area. And do it again. Look at all those workers. I love those guys. All right.
Hey, Kris.
So, yes.
About the review, I have to go to travel the weekend.
Yeah.
But and I think I can't participate in the review. And I because of the work, I didn't do nothing more my model.
Okay.
And I post in my own page on Facebook and mark. How can I say that? Tag you. Yeah.
Okay.
And I tag you. If you have time, you can put your notes there.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, man.
Nice. Nice thing.
Yeah, no problem. So let's do this. So now we have the image here. One thing that you can do here in Arnold, you have this color management. And I showed you this before, right? You have those different modes in here. This one is kind of like an Instagram, almost like filter, you know, like log and all this stuff. So if you tweak anything here, then you can export this with the color treatment, but it's a little tricky. I don't remember exactly how it works, but I think it's under options here. You have to mark it, apply gamma and exposure. So you mark that one, and then you pick like whatever is the mode you're using in here, right? Like 1.8 gamma. And then when you export the XR, you export it with the transformations, right? So basically like save the image, and then all this stuff is gonna be baked in there. But in this case here, I'm just gonna keep it in sRGB gamma. I'm gonna just export like this. So file, save image, and I'm gonna export as EXR. So Stan Clay 1 EXR. You have to put the extension because it's gonna basically like define the type of image file by reading the extension you're putting there. So you have to do it manually. So EXR, if I save it. So now let's go to Photoshop. Let's open that guy, Stan Clay. Alpha channel or transparency, I normally open as alpha channel. And now we have our model in there, right? So a couple of things I do in Photoshop. There are two ways I approach those things. If I'm gonna post something online, I normally use like some fancy filters. I showed you before, the collection I have, that's the alien skin. So before I do anything, I'm gonna convert this from 32 to 16 bits. Which you should get plenty of detail with that anyway, plenty of color. So by default, a local adaptation, it saturates everything like that. So you just go to exposure and gamma, and you should go back to what you had before. So things in Photoshop, I mean, like if you're experienced with it, like basically it works with layers, obviously, right? And so you have all those modifiers. I normally just click the modifiers here. You can actually change the image and everything by using image adjustments. But this is all baked into the image, right? If you want to make everything not baked into the image, you just add those filters as layers in here. So if I add, for example, like a exposure in here, now I can crank it to something that looks reasonable without blowing up anything, right? You have the offset in here. You can get like a little bit more washed out or burned in. And then you have the gamma correction in here that you're gonna get a little bit darker or a little, you know, lighter. So sometimes I wanna go a little lighter like that, like overexposed, you know. And sometimes I wanna keep it more natural. So I'm gonna keep it like around 1 for now. And then the exposure just slightly like this. Then we can go, for example, we can add another layer here. That's the hue and saturation. And then you can play with saturation a little bit and try to get more of that color of the clay, right? So I'm gonna get a little bit more of that. Then for the depth of field, depends of how you we're gonna go about it. So first I'm gonna just click this layer, I'm gonna just click and drag into this little new page here. So it's gonna duplicate it for me. So I have a copy of it. So two ways I normally do this. Either I do it manually by just having this little button here with the little drop, right? I can actually crank the strength here all the way to 100. And then I make like a big brush like that. And then I can fake the depth of field by going to the furthest areas, for example, around there, right? The shoulder. It doesn't take much. You just add a little bit like around the border and then maybe a tiny bit here and then down there more. It doesn't take much like to trick your eye to see things in a certain way. And I was like, it's almost like you can see it's already kind of like getting some scale by just adding a little bit of blur in those areas, right? So that's one way I do it. For example, all those shots you saw from yesterday, it's all done like this. Like it takes me like literally like 10 seconds per image to just do like a fake depth of field. Because it's just a concept, right? Like it's not like I'm using a precision kind of thing. If it was like a precision kind of thing, I would use the depth of field from the render, and that would add probably like 2 or 3 times the amount of render time. And because I didn't have the time, that's, you know, I just ignored that and just move on to do something like this. Now, so that's one way of doing it, right? So that's one type. And then there's this other one here, which is also very useful, which is this a new copy, right? So we start with it, which is basically the blur gallery, you know, which is very useful too. If you go to iris blur, this one sometimes takes a little bit to load. So let's see if it's gonna load fine. I hope it doesn't crap on me. Sometimes it does, actually. Hopefully not today. If it does, I mean, it's easy to just reopen it, but it's always crappy when software doesn't work. Yeah, it's spinning its wheels. So let's do this. It doesn't seem like it's gonna get out of it. Okay, so let's cancel it, and I'm gonna do it again very fast. So open again. It's an old Photoshop too. Okay, let's get that back. And now basically it's not gonna happen again. It normally happens one time and then it doesn't happen again. So let's get this clay again. Gonna do very quickly here my little color correction. So I'm gonna add image mode 16, switch exposure gamma, this, and I go to hue and saturation. I'm gonna crank it a little bit. I'm gonna switch to exposure. I'm gonna crank a little bit. Not by much, something like that. And then, as I was saying, let's just duplicate this one and then use the gallery again. So filter, blur gallery, iris. Now it should work fine. So basically, like this one is a very cheap way of doing it. But if I have like close-ups of the face, for example, for a model, I normally do it very broadly like that. And I keep the focus right there in the middle. And then you just like reduce the focus altogether. And you get just that blur around the edges like that. So if I accept it, now you get this, you know, adds a little depth of field. If you want to do in combination too, you can do that. You know, it's like now you can add some extra blurriness in there, right? So we got a little bit around it. Certain lenses, they do this naturally, you know, it's like to get more blurry around. But obviously this one is too strong to be just a lens problem. It's more like a fake depth of field we are creating here, right? Now, another thing that I normally do, I want to make sure that I have like enough sharpness to read all those forms. So if you go to Filter, Sharpen, Unsharpen, and Sharp Mask, now I can actually see the preview in here is at 50, right? I don't need to go all the way to 50, but let's say like 30 to 35, something like that. It's crispy enough. So it's a nice contrast between, you know, what looks sharp and what's blurry. So it looks more, it gives more impression that's actually a real thing, right? And then the last thing, this is all like quick adjustments I do if I want to post something straight away. But the other thing I do here is actually I do a duplicate of that layer. And then now I'm going to go to Image Adjustments, and I'm going to go to my levels. And I'm going to really crank this one. So I'm going to make it very dark. And then I'm going to bring this one closer, very light, like that. Right? So I make it super contrasty like that. Second step would be to go to Adjustment again. And I'm going to go to the Hue and Saturation and really desaturate it. Keep very little bit of that color present. So almost completely black and white. And then the third step is to go to Filter and just add a blur, Gaussian blur. So now I can blur it out like that, right? Now with this layer here copied with all those adjustments, I can just switch to Screen. And then I can reduce this. And you can get the nice little bloom effect, you know? So for example, at 30% here. Now that's the difference between with and without, right? If it's too much, of course, you can reduce it, like keep it 20 something. And now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just click all of them and then drag in here and then right click and say merge layers. So now it's all baked into one layer, right? So now I can go to this other filter here, which is the lens correction. There's a bunch of different things you can do with lens correction, right? The objective is to actually solve the problems from the lens. But in this case here, we're going to be the opposite. We're going to be creating the problem. So we don't have any chromatic aberration. So we're going to generate some chromatic aberration. My settings, I have a couple of like presets saved here. So this one here shows you how much I'm using. So like 65 minus 61 and then 30. And obviously you can increase more if you want, but it's going to give you this tint, you know, around the edges in here, like green tint. So you can increase it more, like I said, you know, like bring those values like all the way up or all the way down. You can go and switch like between red and cyan, right? So you're going to go more towards red or cyan. And then, but those are the values I'm actually using. And then this one is for controlling the vignetting, right? To make it like lighter or darker. So let's see, this is the midpoint actually. This is the vignette right here. So that's making it lighter. And then this one is gonna make darker around the edges. So you can play with that one as well. If you have like a very bright image, right? You can do that. And then if you accept it, now we have like the little imperfection. It looks like a, you know, a print for a magazine that's a little bit offset, like the paints didn't quite align, right? You have the little offset. So that helps to sell the idea that something that looks more real as well, you know? So at the end, this is kind of like, is the basis of those renders, what I do with them. But when I go here, for example, if I want to do something faster, I'm going to use my trusty plugin. So if I click the background, now I don't have anything else on. So this is the default model. And if I go to filter, and I showed you this before, it's called exposure. Now I think it's exposure 4 is the new version. But this one is exposure 2 is the old one I'm using still. And this one has all those awesome presets for all kinds of stuff. And I love the black and white ones, for example. Let's just close those ones and go to my favorites. I have my own saved in here. So let's see. Oh man, I have all kinds of stuff. Like, let's go to user. So in the user here, you see I have Michelangelo, have Giger, Hellboy. Some of them gonna work for some models, some are not. You know, it's like if I just click a couple of them here, you can see the result in there, right? But let's see, Dick Smith, a bunch of them are kind of black and white ones like this. Some of them have more grain, right? This is a cool one. Let's play with this one, for example. So I can increase the exposure in here and make it a little more like blown up. Shadows, I can actually get some more light, right? So it's not like it's a little bit more washed out, so it looks more interesting. Then clarity, of course, you can add more detail by increasing the clarity, right? So you get more detail in there. Everything to look like an imperfect kind of picture, right? Sharpening, I'm not gonna use more, maybe a little bit more here, but not by much. And then you see like I have all the noise assigned in there. It's all coming from down here. This is the kind of plugin that's worth, I think, the money. It's very cool. I love playing with it. And then, so that's the noise in here. And I can control the size of the noise as well, the amount, the roughness. So you get like thinner or much more broad like that, right? And then you have this other one here that's to create the bloom effect as well. So like this one is the halation, and then he adds that bloom effect. But this one, it has so much stuff going on right now that's, I don't know if it's gonna show that much. It's actually showing, see, like kind of glowy. This one you have to be careful with it, otherwise it kind of like really overblown. But yeah, it's a fun plugin to play with. So let's keep that way. And then we have the bouquet here that basically does the same stuff that we're just playing in Maya. It's exactly the same stuff. I think it's the same, similar algorithm, you know, it's like the layout's the same. I don't know, maybe Photoshop actually bought the rights from those guys, because it works exactly the same. And so if I go here to the amount, right? So you start blurring stuff. See like how cool it looks like that. So let's just clean up the noise a little bit. The tone, roughness, let's get a little thinner like that. And maybe the shadows got a little bit too much now. Yeah, something like that. Oh, and there's all kinds of stuff here when it comes like to borders. So if you want to do something cool. Oh, don't tell me it crashed. No. No, okay, good. So let's go. Like you have all those, the gallery here has this grunge stuff, right? And like a burned in and all kinds of really cool stuff. You have like the brushed paper stuff, damaged. Have all those nice ones. So I'm gonna click this one here, for example. And then you have the light effects as well. You can add like, you can actually switch side to side and up and down with the light. And then you have all those types of lights in here to add imperfection. Some flares, which is kind of like cheesy, right? Surround, this is kind of cool actually. He adds lots of cool imperfections to the picture. So let's see something like this. And then you just apply it. You can save those presets as well, right? So now you have that interesting image you can actually post and say like, oh yeah, it's an old sculpture I found, you know, it's like that my great grandpa did back in the day, right? And pretend you're being serious about it. So yeah, I think like I don't do much more than this. Sometimes I do color correction if I'm in the process of trying to get certain results with my renders. But like I said before, I mean, I try to get my renders as close as possible to the final output straight out of Arnold. And that way I have very little to worry about when I bring to Maya, you know, to Photoshop. And then I just use Photoshop to add like this bloom effect, a little fake depth of field, you know, like a chromatic aberration, and then to play with those filters. You know, sometimes I post those artsy fartsy renders like this, you know, and then that's basically it. Any questions, guys? I mean, like I think I went through basically everything I could show you guys. And then at this point, I think like in terms of tools, I gave you like everything I had. It's just a matter of like really practicing everything, you know. It's like it's there's no secret. I mean, like I think the revelation maybe for some of you guys in this class is that it's all about like the you know, it's like it's your touch, is how you're gonna be doing this stuff. But there is no secret or hidden things, you know. It's like I use very simple tools. You saw like across the board, you know, it's like with my shader networks, they're super clean, like there's nothing fancy about them. In terms of the tools I use in ZBrush, like very basic stuff. And then when I need something, I actually build my own, you know. So I think like the whole intention with this class, obviously, was to just expose a group of people, like good artists like you guys are, to my own way of like seeing things and approaching. So it's just like the view of some other artists, basically, right? But without having, you know, it's like this set of rules. Everything here, like all the rules I have set for myself, are based on experimentations and things that worked for me, that not necessarily going to work for you guys, right? But I think the whole objective is this kind of like almost like a return to a more artistic approach to sculpting, you know. We live in this world that everything has to be super fast, and we are in production and we have to produce results super fast, you know. It's like using anything we can find, and then we get very lazy in the process. And then when we go and we're going to do our own personal work, instead of like exploring and having this beginner's mind again, you know, it's like the curious mind, trying to learn new things, we are just like set, you know. It's like because we already learned those techniques and then we just adopt them. And all of a sudden you're just missing this gigantic opportunity of learning new things, you know. It's like and developing your eye further. We get like too lazy, I guess, like when we work in production, you know. That's why it's so interesting when you see like kids who are not in the industry yet, and they have all this time to experiment and they're kicking ass, you know. It's like they're producing amazing work and everything. And I'm so jealous of them sometimes, because, you know, it's like when you're in the studio, you're just like, you're the little a hamster in the wheel, you know. It's like you're just like running to get stuff done and not a lot of time to explore anything. That's why this is my happy place, you know. It's like exploring and going back to the times I didn't have kids yet and we are married, you know. It's like I am today. And just having this time at night to just like go to town with this stuff and experiment and try to push myself, you know. And if in the process people can learn with this, even better. So I thank you guys, like from the bottom of my heart, for the opportunity, you know. It's like or having this class, you know. It's like you guys are the first victims. So it was about trust, right? Like because you didn't go through this process of having, you know, had a class with me before. So this is the first time I'm doing this online, like in this manner. I had one class before with Ryan Kingston back in the day, but it was like attached to a school, you know. It was like I didn't quite enjoy the experience in terms of the thing of the relationship with the school and everything. I really enjoyed having the contact with the students, of course, because that's the best part, is when we are like artists dealing with each other, you know. It's like and exchanging ideas. But when like bureaucracies and other stuff get involved, then it's not fun at all. But I love this format because I have absolute control about what's going on. I control the emails. I know where to find you guys, how to give the feedback and all this stuff. So it's all, you know, it's like in my hands. So basically, like if something fails, I take like full responsibility for it. And but I'm really enjoying the format. I hope I can keep doing this for a little while, you know. But again, like thank you so much for being part of it, and yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. You know, it was a long and bumpy ride, especially the last 2 days with the crashes. But yeah, you know where to find me, man. I'm always posting memes.
Hey, Kris, man. Thanks a lot. This has been a freaking awesome class. I learned so much in it.
Oh man, like
just saying.
Yeah, it's been, and I have a blast just, you know, it's like every morning chatting with you at work, you know, it's like an exchange, like, and you're being a great source of feedback, you know, because I'm kind of like, okay, what I'm doing here, and you know, it's like, how can I improve this or that? It's been awesome, man. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. See you tomorrow morning.
Yeah, see you tomorrow morning. Yeah, yeah, and
thank you.
Thank you, guys. And yeah, I'm gonna post like a little official note today, and my intention is to actually get all your information. You know, it's like your social security number. No, of course not. No, get your Instagram addresses and everything, because I want to post something that can actually plug your work. You know, would be nice, of course, if the work was produced during the class, so I can plug it. But I don't mind like simply like plugging your pages and everything. There's so much talent in this group, you know, so it would be nice to just like give a shout to you guys.
Hey, Kris, I wanted to say together. Thank you so much for everything. I've learned so much. I think everyone can kind of relate. If we're not asking questions, we're probably just working or completely overwhelmed by the amount of work.
Yeah, Kris. Personal note from me also. This is the second online class I'm participating. First, it was Frank Singh's video tutorial, and this is the second one, because I've been never into other classes before, so about online classes, and I joined another class, but I paid for, I think, half of the class fees. But first day I got rid of the instructor who was teaching us, like, he was jumping the stages, like, you know, you can't track it down. And from artists like you, and seeing every step each day, and the way you taught us, and that's really useful, man. You know, I don't have any words to describe how good it is. So anyway, thank you for selecting me and the rest of us. This was an amazing course.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much, guys.
Such a journey, man.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I'm pretty sure you're going to see a lot of work being posted towards your class. I think we're just trying to catch up.
yeah, of course. No, and I cannot wait to see, you know, it's like how you guys incorporate some of this stuff, you know, because each one of you are going to incorporate in a different way, right? Some of you guys, like, for example, the class of June, there's some like cartoon artists, you know, entering. So my approach was like, okay, I'm not going to force people to just do portraits. You know, I wanted them to feel comfortable about doing whatever they want to do. And I think those techniques can actually help them, even with the cartoon stuff, you know, kind of like more and more people use like realistic textures for cartoons and stuff like that. So maybe like in a subtle way, you know. Now, there is one thing that I'm going to try for the next one starting next week, which is, yesterday I mentioned, like, I'm probably going to do the Frazetta or maybe like the Ray Harryhausen. But, you know, it's like I mentioned to my wife, and the first thing she said was like, are you only going to model like old white men? And then I was like,
she's got a point.
And then I was like, oh, okay, so here's the deal. It's not my fault that the people who influenced me, you know, the most turn out to be like white dudes, okay? I didn't pick them because of the color of the skin or their genre, right? Let's not go all PC here. But turns out that they are like mostly, you know, especially the people in the entertainment, they're white Jews, you know? So like there's nothing I can do about it. But she had a point. And then after thinking about, I said, like, you know, I think you're right. I think I should jump and challenge myself, because there's no point of doing this if it's not for challenging myself, right? And the challenge with this one was actually exploring with like someone with a facial expression showing teeth, right? So it's always like tricky. So I decided for that because of this. But then in this case, when she mentioned that, I was like, you know what? I should model a female, you know? It's a complete contrast, like very soft skin, and the hair long and everything. Now, I don't know about the feelings when it comes from the class itself, how the student's gonna feel, because I'm not gonna be going crazy with the detail and the you know, like all the wrinkles and everything. But it doesn't stop me from actually opening this model here and showing them, doing a little demo about how I explore the wrinkles, and showing that in contrast with the female model, how much more subtle things gonna be, you know. So I told her, you know what, I'm gonna model you. So so that's gonna be a challenge, you know, because well, my wife is very beautiful. She's very beautiful, but yeah, and I hope I can get it right. And she said, like, she was very sweet. She was like, oh, you can put all the wrinkles, because she's 45 now, but she looks like she's 30, you know. But she's like, if you want to put the wrinkles, I'm fine with that, because I realize I'm aging. And I was like, no, dude, you're beautiful. I'm going to do my best to just like, yeah. So I think that's what I'm going to do, you know. The next one, I'm going to go for like realism, but like something that adds some contrast to my gallery of old white men, you know.
Okay.
Are you going to continue to post stuff on Instagram?
What's that?
Are you going to continue to post this stuff on Instagram? So
Oh,
I want to
yeah.
be following the female. I actually, like, during the class, it's one of the things that I kind of sucked at. I was doing a lot of work for work, and I was actually working on a female Indian.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so it was like, how do I get this? I want to do the pores, but it looks too strong. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, no, you're going to be able to see the progress on Instagram for sure. And you guys, since you have this experience now, you're going to be able to contrast and see how I'm approaching it, you know? So yeah, awesome. Again, guys, I love you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I see you online, of course, and then we're going to keep in touch. That group is going to keep going forever. Hopefully going to be adding more people, and, you know, and going to be a giant family at some point.
Thanks so much, Kris. I would like to say something too. You know, as you know, you are like a hero here in Brazil, you know. You are a very respected guy here, and I'm glad to know you in this class, and thank you so much for sharing this knowledge.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thank you so much. And if you're at Hyde, come to say hi, man. Gonna be awesome.
Yeah, I will buy the ticket
Sweet.
Just to meet you.
Oh, yeah, sweet. Thank you so much.
Okay. Nice.
All right, guys. Well, have a great night, a great day, a great morning, or whatever it is, because we are all over the place. And I see you very soon. See you guys.
See you.
Good night, Kris.
Good night.
See you guys.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Yeah. Good
Bye.
night, man. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Thank you.